our creative,
Hello, everybody.
Our creative director, who's going to talk about how fabric goes from art to fabric. It's really interesting, and it's a long process, but she'll talk about that. And then I have Sharon Thornton here.
You've already seen me.
She's our inspiration marketing manager, and all the beauty that you see behind us and we're going to show you tonight, she is responsible for. So she's a huge job. It's a fun job. It's a stressful job, but she's a quilter, so she's the perfect person for the job. And then I also have here tonight Sarah Asby. She works in sales and marketing, and she helps Sharon. She's a quilter also. So, you know, welcome, and I hope you enjoy our program, and I hope you learn a lot about FreeSpirit, and you see something that's going to make you run out and go,
one question in advance.
Okay.
Somebody asked, you know, kind of what you guys majored in school, what, you know, how you got into the fabric industry, that kind of thing. So, what, how did you find yourself in such a, you know, yummy job?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to let Debbie Stark go first.
Yeah.
Or wait, Nancy, wait, we should start with you.
So,
No, Nancy's not on. It's still on me. You have to come back over here.
Sorry, I'm going to put this down. You're going to see.
Okay, Nancy's going to come over, and then Debbie will tell you, then I'll tell you, and then Sarah will tell you as we go. If we remember, you might have to ask us again.
So I have a degree in public relations. So how does a person with public relations get here? My mother sewed everything I wore, and I hated it. I was an evil child. I used to like yell at her when she was trying to hem my dresses and scream that I was going to buy all my clothes at a department store until I got a job out of college and I had no money, and I decided it was time to sew, and I really kind of taught myself how to sew. Then I answered a blind post office box for a job in Edison, New Jersey, and it was with Singer Sewing Machine Company. And I got the job, and then went from there to Viking Sewing Machine Company, and then went from there to Coates and Clark Thread, then to FreeSpirit. So I've been doing this for 30 some years. Not going to tell you how old I am, you could guess, but that's how I got started. And I can tell you that once you're in this industry, you don't leave, because the people and the work and the passion you have for sewing and quilting, it makes it really not so much a job, but yeah, it's more like you take your hobby and build a career. So that's my story. So whoever's next.
It's a good story.
Do you want me to come here?
So Debbie.
Okay, so I'm Debbie Stark, and long story, I'll make it as brief as I can. I have a bachelor's in business administration with a concentration in marketing. I have my master's in business administration. But when I was still in undergraduate school, I finished my classwork early, so I went to take an internship with the one and only Donna Wilder, who is the originator of FreeSpirit Fabrics. So she was my mentor. I worked for her for almost 10 years at Fairfield Processing, and I left there and I went to work for Springs. And as you know, Springs was a huge manufacturer down here. They moved us from New York to North and South Carolina, wherever we chose to live. I decided to live in North Carolina. I worked for Springs for 11 years, so now I'm dating myself too. So you do leave, but you come back. That's the key. Mm-hmm. After Springs, I left and I went to work for Belk. And you all know Belk, largest family-owned department store here in the United States. And I worked for them for 11 years as well, and I was in product development. So all through my career, I've gone from marketing to fabrics, to textile, to product development, from quilting to home, fashion, comforters, quilts, towels, sheets, you name it, everything for Belk and their private label programs. And then I circled back because Donna Wilder, after many years, called me and said, so how happy are you? And I was like, I'm really happy. What's going on? And she said, can we have dinner? And the next thing I know, lo and behold, she introduced me to the folks at Coates, who at the time owned FreeSpirit, and they were looking for a creative director, and here I am. So we went through Coates. Coates decided to close our doors. Jaftex decided to come back and save us, and here we are today. And I have the great pleasure of working with all of my cohorts here, as well as some incredibly talented designers across the US, Europe, Australia, Japan, you name it. So it really is a dream job. So thank you all. I'm going to send it to Sharon.
Oh, I'm gonna talk. Hi, everybody. Got my mask off now. So, okay, so I'm trying to think of my journey. I kind of feel like I'm a little on the Johnny on the spot. So I started sewing when I was very young. I was about 9 years old. My grandmother's from South Carolina, and she actually worked in a mill. And when she would come to visit, I grew up in Massachusetts. My dad's from Massachusetts, and he brought her north, and that was, as you ladies from down here must know, was quite the adjustment. So my grandmother would come to visit with all kinds of extra fabric, and my mom and my grandmother would be together, and they would be sewing, and naturally I wanted to join in on the fun. So I started sewing very, very young. I started in garments, and when I was in high school, it was truly my hobby. I loved it. I spent all of my time sewing from a very young age. In high school, I actually built my first quilt. It was a Dresden plate, and I don't know if my love for Dresden plates remains because that was my first quilt, or if it's just because it's a great pattern. But either way, I love Dresden plates. They're always my first choice in a quilt. So out of high school, I went into college. I majored in fashion merchandising, and then I transferred to another school, and I majored in fashion marketing. And with all of that background, I got a lot of textiles, and I got a lot of marketing. And when I left college, my first job, again, I was up in Massachusetts. I was working for, what was my first job? TJ Maxx. I worked in their corporate office and the buying office there. And then after that, I went to Filene's Basement, and I was in the buying office there. And, got a lot of experience on how to sell, how to market, what to buy, etc. And then I took a little hiatus as I had my family. I have 3 sons. And I was going to continue working until we had twins, and then that was a game changer. So when I had twins, I stayed home, and I was, you ladies can do the math. 3 kids in, daycare was quite the unexpected hit. So stayed home for a number of years, and then I was doing my own business. I do a lot of alterations. I call it my side hustle. I do a lot of formal wear alterations. I actually still do that now. And but prior to coming here, that was my primary business that I did working out of my home. And I also collaborated with a local business where they would refer customers to me. So I did that for a number of years. And then I decided I needed to get back into a real job. And I didn't even know that Coates & Clark was right around the corner from where I lived. And so I was sending my resume to HR, and I like to tell this story because I kept banging on the door, sending it in. I was being ignored, and I thought, well, I'm going to get in there because I belong there. And so I kept sending my resume, and then Nancy Jewell knew somebody who knew that I was looking to get in, and that person contacted me, and I got in touch with Nancy, and the rest is history. I'm here. I went to Coates while Nancy was there. And then, as Debbie's already said, when we made the transition to Jaftex, I came over, and so now I've been here for about 5 years, working specifically for FreeSpirit. So that is my journey to this date. And now, here's Sarah.
Okay. Well, real quick, because I know you really want to know about FreeSpirit and our fabrics and the beautiful quilts behind me, but I am from Virginia, and I have a undergraduate and a master's in business administration. But I really have been a stay-at-home mom until fairly recently, and I've always sewed. And I have a teenager who refuses to wear any clothes that I would make for her any longer. And so I smocked all her dresses, made all my sons Johns, and someone said, well, you need to start quilting. So I started haunting all the local quilt shops, and I love to sew and quilt. And I was actually, about a year ago, I was up at a quilt shop in Concord, and Scott was there. Scott Fortunoff from Jaftex was there, and all the FreeSpirit team. Debbie was there, Nancy was there. Anyways, oh, this Debbie was there.
I think she was there.
And anyways, I listened to his, I was kind of a stalker on Facebook of Scott Fortunoff, and I had actually already messaged him on Facebook saying, if you're ever hiring in Charlotte, I would love to work for your company. And he's like, we're not hiring right now. And so then, like 4 months later, he came and gave this talk here, and Liz Dougherty and another Janice Pope came up to me and said, well, we were wondering if you're looking for a job. And I'm like, well, I was not. And they're like, well, you need to come talk to us. And so then, here I am a year later, and I just work in the marketing department, helping everyone out and do a little bit of everything. So with all that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Debbie.
I wanted to do what I thought would be of most interest to everyone. And since we work with a plethora of talented designers across the US, as I mentioned, the UK, the infamous Kay Fassett, and his team, as well as Japan with Keiko Goki and Australia with Kathy Dowdy, I decided that we work with each and every individual artist differently. Some artists send in hand paintings, some artists start sketching, and we go back and forth on conversations until we get to the finished product. And some artists just digitize everything, hand me a beautiful package tied with a bow, and I send it off to the mill. Of course, it needs more work than that, but that's pretty much the gamut. It ranges everything in between there as well. Some people are really proficient on the computer, but when we communicate with the mills, it has to all be digitized. So regardless of how the artist sends it to us, we still have a lot of work here to get it prepped for the mills so that we can be assured that we are doing the best we can to articulate their vision to finished fabric. So with that said, I'm going to share first Cattails by Rachel Hauer. Rachel is an incredible artist and illustrator. She is actually a tattoo artist in Brooklyn, New York. And you will see from her fine line detail that you will understand just how detail-oriented and specific and professional she is. So when I first met Rachel, it was at a quilt show, and she came up to me all nervous and timid and said, I really want to figure out how to get into fabric design, and I'm a tattoo artist, and I'm not really sure how to do it. Oh, and then did I mention she is Tula Pink's tattoo artist? Ding, ding, ding. So anyway, she came up to me, and it was a pleasure to meet her, and I said, well, let's talk, and let's set up a time a little later. So we talked. And I said, okay, next time I'm in New York, let's get together and I'd love to see some of your work. So we met and she started showing me some of her work and some of her ideas and concepts. And she had a myriad of designs. And I said, well, everybody loves cats. Cats are always something that it doesn't have to be specific to a certain kind of cat. So we decided to do a cat collection. And so she started sending me drawings. And I just printed out some drawings, and this was the first drawing she sent to me. She had this idea of doing really whimsical cats on bicycles. So she had the bride and groom, and she had this great little guy with a knit sweater, and she happens to be a really great knitter. So that was very appropriate. And then she had the little mouse chasing the cat, which is kind of funny because usually it's the other way around. So then we started talking about coloration and other kinds of cats we could do. So we have a white cat and a Cheshire kind of cat. And then we talked about a little cat who's a fisherman. And then we talked about a little race cat on his unicycle-like thing with his little red and white striped sweater on. So we kept talking about it, and she kept sending me these individual motifs. And then we started saying, well, what's it going to look like in repeat? And as much as we try not to do a lot of directional prints, this one lent itself to being directional. So she started putting things together so we could see how the cats flowed and what the repeat would look like in the next step. And lo and behold, at some point, so I don't have every step in the process to show you, but you can at least see how we started, we continued the conversation, and then ultimately she sent us the full repeat. We did our work on this side through the computer. We digitized it, we sent her whole collection to the mill, and then we started getting our strike-offs. And here happens to be the strike-off for the cat. And during the process, we talk a lot about scale, we talk a lot about color, light, mediums, and darks. And we decided that the scale on this, while the artwork that we started with was quite large, we felt it would be most beneficial for quilters if we scaled down the design. Now, there is a fine line between scaling it down so much that we don't get all of these great fine line details, but we wanted to make sure it was usable, workable, and everything you wanted to do. You can fussy cut it, you can cut it into interesting shapes and just end up with little bicycle wheels. There's so many great things you can do with this print, regardless of the fact that it is indeed directional. I don't have our color matching system to show you, but as we move down and I show you a couple of the other collections in the process, you'll see where we do some color matching. There's an entire set of standards that one set is kept with us, one set is sent to the mill, so that we're both working from the same set of color So the matching across the sea to Korea is very accurate. So this is the first collection. Okay, so a strike off, Sharon's helping me, she said explain strike off. So what happens is we send all the art to the mill, and the mill creates what we call engravings, which is how they print the fabric. And once the fabric is printed, they send us a cut, and that's called the strike off. And this strike off represents our first look at how it went from paper to fabric. And over here, we have all the little cat paws that actually account for each screen in the design. So this is the black screen, and that makes up the darker line image here in the wheels and outlining the flowers and around the little cat, giving it some little texture. And then you've got the charcoal gray. And again, that's picked up in this fabric across the board. And it goes all the way down to the various colors. So in this particular print, we use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 colors. We maximize our color count because this was traditionally printed. And we'll talk about digital printing a little later too.
So when does this deliver though?
November. Thank you, Nancy. I'm on April 2021. I don't remember. This is delivering in November, and I highly recommend you look for it in your quilt shop because it is whimsical and adorable and fabulous, and the quilt inspiration is gorgeous. And then I just wanted to show you a couple other pieces. I mean, the detail work in this, look at this incredible toile. I'm going to turn it around so Nancy can see it. We really wanted to do something that, so FreeSpirit is all about pushing the limits and being very fashion forward and modern and colorful. But there's this opportunity to do a twist on things. So while a toile is incredibly traditional, have you ever seen a cat toile? Have you ever seen cats fishing in a toile? Have you ever seen all these great little details with the fish, and there's a frog somewhere in here? Here's a little frog on a rock. It's very whimsical. It's colored beautifully. And we decided that this was so beautiful. Let's also do a traditional toile in sepia, but again, with those really cute, sassy little cats. And we changed the scale. So on this print, and remember, we kept enough air around it so you could fussy cut and do specific little vignettes or scenes in your quilt. And then we reduced the scale. So that we would get just a slightly different take, and you can mix and match this across the board. So there's our smaller toile. And then here's another piece of fabric that I wanted to share where we started. So this was an original drawing that we started the concept from. And then we started to bring in the details. So you'll see how it goes from just a quick sketch to say, this is what I'm thinking. And then she starts to really get detailed with all of her line work. And then we took it from here. We created the repeat. So you'll see, here's the cat. Here's the mouse.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Uh-oh.
It's my watch. Sorry, everyone.
Suri doesn't understand.
Suri doesn't understand. So you'll see all the little details. I think we actually took out the bunny. So there were things that changed from this piece to when we got to fabric. But you'll see that the repeat, here's the repeat to repeat. Repeat to repeat. And again, we've maximized color on this strike off. And then here's just another one. I just really am so fascinated by Rachel's attention to detail and her beautiful line work that you can really tell without putting color to it. She really is an incredible artist, i.e. tattoo artist. So again, we started with concept here. We started developing it further with color. And then we do a lot of tweaking on our end. So while this is very jade and blue, we felt like the collection was getting a little too blue, and we do have a secondary colorway of this, but we took the gray so that we could really play with the various gray and peach and green pieces. So you could see how beautifully, yep, let's throw that in. So Sarah's helping me because we have a very small spot here, but you'll see just how beautiful, and then the pop of color. I'm sure there are more pieces. Here's another piece that layers in. So we've got two different colorways of this. It's just really beautiful, and that all over sleeping cat design is just precious. So I know that was kind of confusing. It's a very long process. When we launched this it was originally scheduled for April.
We launched in May.
We ended up launching it in May. When we launched it in April, our development with her started a year ago, April. So it's a very long process. We started a year in advance. We released it to retailers in actually May because we got delayed due to COVID. We released it in May, and we're not going to ship fabric until November. So it's really well over a year and a half during the development process before we get it on fabric to the retailer for you to buy and go make beautiful quilts in.
That's right.
So we're going to move on to the next way that we work with some of our artists.
Before you go on,
Nancy.
we did have a question.
Yes.
What was the artist's name again?
That is Rachel Hauer.
Okay,
Hauer, and the name of the collection is Cattails.
great. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm looking the wrong way.
Nope, it's all right.
No, that's great. So now we're going to talk about an artist we've been working with for a couple of years now. Her name is Denise Burkett, and she is from Australia. And I met her at Fall Quilt Market. I will never forget. I think it was my first market back into the industry. I started in September of 2016, went to market in October 2016, met Denise, and she was really timid, and she's like, I have some art I would kind of like to show you if you had some time. And I said, yes, let's meet, let's go. So we went and we sat down, and she pulled out her art, and it was like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. So she has a camper that she drives all around Australia in the outback, and she just paints. She paints these beautiful canvases. She paints nature. She paints everything she sees. And it really just spoke to us. So here is an example of her painting, and she paints on canvas for the most part. So just a beautiful textural, not necessarily novelty or thematic, but it's just gorgeous. And so we said, hey, we can really do something beautiful with that. So we took her original paintings, we scanned them into our computer system, we cleaned up the files, because you do have to clean up the files so that the mill knows what to do with it. And we decided, because this is endless color and the scale is so large, we decided to digitally print it. So when you digitally print fabric, you don't have those same screen restrictions that we talked about with Rachel Hauer's. When you do traditional printing, you can go maximum 17 or 18 screens depending on the repeat size. Digital, it's endless. And colors mesh and blur much more easily. You're not having these hard, fine lines. And yet, while digital printing is beautiful, some collections don't lend themselves to digital printing because digital printing isn't great for neutrals and certain colors. So we really balance to see what speaks to the artwork, what's the best way to represent it in finished fabrics so that you, the quilters, can certainly enjoy and use it for years to come. So digital fabric, we took this, we scanned it into our office, we cleaned up the files, we sent it to the digital printer. And lo and behold, after a couple what we call strike-offs, which means they sent us a piece of fabric, we make color corrections, we send it back, they send it again, it goes back and forth. Here is the finished fabric. So again, you can see just how accurate and how similar her original painting, finished fabric, approved strike-off.
Perfect match.
Super beautiful. And so Denise we talked about endless color, and we can also do endless repeat. So this is a very large scale.
You want to see it in the quilt?
Yes, let's show it in the quilt. I knew you guys were behind me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
So,
you talk about the fabric, and I'll talk about the quilt.
okay, so you'll notice, I mean, you can see what she must have seen when she was painting this piece of fabric. Probably some kind of trees bring us into the sky, and I'm thinking that's the skyline, and maybe at dawn or dusk, probably dusk. But it's really super beautiful, and all the texture in there. And then she's got some maybe green grass and maybe a little bit of a babbling brook going through it. I mean, it's really beautiful. I'm going to let you talk about the quilting.
Okay. So the name of this quilt is Washed Landscape, and I know Nancy's up close on this. And so in terms of the inspiration for this collection, so Debbie's talked about the process on how to get here, but here's an actual quilt, Washed Landscape. You could go to our website, FreeSpiritFabrics.com, and you could actually find the pattern to make this if you were interested, or just to look at the quilt a little bit more closely. But when you get to the middle, Nancy's showing the top up here, and it almost looks like trees. And this quilt is quilted amazingly, and we will show you the back of this in a moment. But you can see a lot of the quilting on the top, but when we flip it over, you're not going to believe what you see on the back. But where Nancy is right now, Nancy, if you could just go up just a little bit more. The reason it was developed this way is because we wanted to be sure that we could show quilters that you can, in fact, piece this quilt. You can use these fabrics to piece a quilt. And in addition to that, at the bottom of this quilt, I don't know if you can show them this, this is like a whole cloth. So if you decided that you wanted to buy this fabric and just whole cloth quilt it, like look at the piece that Debbie has right there. So there is the bottom of this quilt. So what we're trying to do is show in this quilt that you can piece the quilt into small blocks. So like in this section here, you can see how it cuts up beautifully. It still works in blocks. But if you decided, oh, I just love that whole piece and I just want to quilt that, look how totally amazing it is just like this, if that's what you decided you wanted to do.
So we need to tell you that the name of this collection is called Fancy Free, and it just delivered to your local quilt shop. So you need to run.
Because it won't last long.
It won't last long, because this is, like Sharon said, one whole piece of fabric down here. I hope you don't see my feet.
And if you have daughters like Nancy that don't want to wear anything that you've made, or don't want to use a quilt that you've done, you could take a piece of this fabric, stretch it over a canvas, and you have an instant wall hanging that might appeal to your teenage daughter.
Exactly. Well, let's show the back of this, because the quilting on the back of this is truly amazing.
Wow.
So if you couldn't see the quilting from the front, you can certainly see the quilting on the back of this. And Carol Ann McCandless, I hope I'm saying her last name properly, she's the quilter. She's actually in Tennessee, and she does a lot of quilting for one of our fabric designers, Jane Sassaman. So she does quilting for Jane, and I reached out to her because look at the quilting. I mean, it's truly amazing.
You can hang this backwards.
Right,
It
you
is
can hang it
beautiful.
backwards, but I mean, the front of it's gorgeous. And like Debbie said, when Denise is at Quilt Market, she does a lot of clothing in her fabrics, which are really beautiful. Like you could think of like big pajama pants or something. We don't know. We're hearing something in here. We don't know if it's thunder.
Sounds like
Trash
thunder.
guy.
Oh, the trash guy.
We're hearing a lot of noise. We don't know what it is. But anyway, so here's the quilt. It's gorgeous. Just giving you a lot of different ways to look at the fabric and think about the fabric in terms of, like I said, piece blocks or whole cloth, however you see it, however, however the vision takes you. So it's just great to see from what Debbie just showed you to the actual finished product.
And then you'll see, here's another piece of original painted cloth on canvas. And then here is our reproduction digitally printed on 60 squares. Absolutely beautiful. We did intentionally make the ground a little whiter. We felt like because it's so hard to capture an ivory in digital printing, it was much wiser to do it white, and it really needed that pop of color, as you noticed in the quilt. So another beautiful collection is called Fancy Free by Denise Burkett, and it is in your quilt stores now for a very short time, I'm sure.
Run.
So go run, get it. And then the last collection I want to discuss and show you is how some of our artists, like Kate and Brandon and Philip Jacobs, as well as Martha Medley, actually still paint. They hand paint all of their designs, and they're absolutely fabulous. Here's one I can share with you because we were lucky enough to still have her original paintings with us. So Martha will send us a beautiful painting along with her colored chips at the bottom. And again, this is where the design team needs to scan all of this art into the system, and then they start working and manipulating it so it can be done in repeat. And you'll see how she paints. She paints so it's in repeat. So this guy continues here, and this is what we would call a half drop. So this whole design starts again down here, if that makes sense to anybody. Here are her color chips. We do work, we go back and forth with Martha. Do we want to keep it the scale? Do we want to change the scale? In this particular pattern, we decided to keep the scale, and we did it in 2 colorways. And you'll see just how close. Now it's looking a little dark maybe because it's doubled up. But if we opened it up to the raw edge, you would see just how beautifully it matches, and we would go back and look at it against this. Now there are some colors that are a little harder to achieve, and it's hard to convert from paper to fabric, so we get as close as we possibly can, making sure that we maintain the aesthetic and the specifics that the designer has requested. So we did it in this beautiful blush tone, and then we did it again in this really rich, what she was calling her nightshade. So that is one of Martha's designs. And this is called Veggies. And there's a quilt behind me that we can talk about, and maybe,
Oh, you want to do it now?
yes, no, Sharon can talk about that now, and then we'll do the last piece of fabric.
Right.
Yes, of course.
Can you see it okay? Yep. So this quilt, I've already forgotten the name of it, Canning Season. So you can see that the collection that Debbie's showing you, she's showing you the radishes, and she's about to show you the peas or the beans that go with it. But, you know, I mean, it screamed canning jar when I saw this collection. So you can see it has beautiful carrots, you've got beets, you've got radishes, you know, any parsley. We also blended some cake in with this. We've got oranges here. And as we come down, this collection was just stunning. I mean, whether you made an apron out of it, you make napkins out of it, you do stuff for your kitchen, you could do placemats. You know, everybody has a friend who does canning or has some love of gardening or anything like that. And this quilt is, you know, totally for that person. You could hang this in your kitchen if you were so inclined to make it for a friend who does canning. Or I just thought it was really, really fun, and it was a great way to display and showcase this collection. What better way than to show all your vegetables in cans?
That's right.
So, oh, and wait, let's just show this up close because that's the one that Debbie was just showing. So she just showed this, the carrot, the beets. Wait, what are these?
Those are radishes.
Radishes here. She'd shown it over there on paper, and here it is. It made it to the cloth, and how beautiful it looks.
And then we talked about the night version of the radishes, and that went with the night version of the carrots.
Right.
And some of the cabbage over here, and these beautiful, gorgeous leaves. Really, really rich. Just beautiful.
Right, and then those beans you're about
And
to
I'm
show.
going to show you the beans. So again, here's a piece of beautiful original artwork that Martha submitted after we discussed and went back and forth a bunch. And she says, I'd like it done in 2 different colorways, the original, as well as the more nightshade version. And she gave us all of her color chips. So again, we scan all of this into the system. We make sure that the art is really clean. So when the engraver in Korea starts working on it to get the screens ready to do the printing, everything is going to be a perfect fit. We make sure that the colors fall properly onto the different colors so that we don't get what we call trapping. When you see a really dark edge around something that looks like an outline, oftentimes that may not be intentional. Sometimes it is, but oftentimes it's not. And you'll notice when you look at these beans, we don't have any of what we call trapping. Everything is really clean and matches back to her original color chips. So you can see there's no additional outline around the peas, which she did not want any outlines, and it's the way the color falls on top of each other as they print screen after screen after screen. So again, this is something that we would never do digitally because we wouldn't get exactly the right saturation of color. And the greens are kind of funky when you do digital, so we just decided to go forward with traditional, and it's a beautiful, beautiful design. So that is Martha Medley's Veggies.
Right. Here the beans up close in the quilt. So this canning jar quilt, this pattern can be found on our website also. So if you go to the FreeSpirit website and you'd like to see it, any of the patterns that are on our website in PDF format are free patterns that you can download, and you can print them off, and you can make the quilt as you see it. And I would definitely rush out and find a store that has this collection. When did this ship?
Because it's
Was it
gone.
June?
It shipped in May, and it's
Right. It's beautiful.
Probably don't.
It's really beautiful.
But if you can find it, I'd buy it.
All right.
So that gives you a little taste of how we work from original concept to getting the designs on fabric. There's obviously a lot more to the details because it takes us months and months and months. But in a very short presentation, it shows you the various ways we receive art and how we get it to fabric. If you have any questions, let us know.
All right.
Good job.
So now.
Do you want to talk?
Do
You want to do any
you
more
want to talk
fabric?
about what's on the tables now? What's coming?
Oh, yes. Let's talk about what's coming. So here's the sneak peek. I'm sure many of you are aware of Tim Holtz. He is an incredible designer. He has a very eclectic aesthetic about him. And you'll know him from foundations and eclectic elements. And oh my goodness, the list goes on.
Right.
What are some of the
We should.
Wallflower,
Expedition, Wallflower, there's so many collections, but we had introduced a collection of what we consider our version of grunge called Provisions from Tim Holtz. And this was the original palette right here, where we came out with 16 colors initially. And then we decided to layer in 4 new colors that got brighter, deeper, and more saturated, because he has a new line that is so different than anything he's done before. Most of his collections are very subdued, neutrals with a little splash of soft color. And yet here we have an explosion. It's called Abandon. And normally we would print Tim traditionally, but because this was endless color and the scales were enormous, we actually played with scale and reduced some. You'll see just how beautiful this is. You get almost that patina-like design and color throughout the collection. And he's really noted for taking what's old and bringing it into what's new, and has that really eclectic feel about his work. And this is just one of the many. And if you followed him at all, he's an incredible paper resource. He's got fabric. He's got all kinds of amazing things. So that's the first design. This is probably a little bit more what you would know Tim by. Something a little more subdued, a little more neutral, a little more gender neutral or masculine. But again, it just plays so beautifully across all of the new pieces in his collection.
And this is called?
And this is called Abandoned.
And it will be available when?
October.
Yeah.
So look for it in your quilt shops.
It's beautiful.
Do we have a quilt to show?
We do not have a quilt in Abandon to show, but
we do on the website, don't we?
yeah.
In the lookbook on the website.
And the lookbook on the website.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's a gorgeous quilt.
Well, I would like to show this other one, though, Nancy.
And actually, we should show this piece. I mean, every piece is so beautiful. I don't want to stop. You guys need to cut me off.
Okay, we're cutting you off right now.
All right, but wait a minute. Before
This piece back.
Debbie goes, I have a question for Debbie as a quilter. Could you tell us the difference between traditional and digital printing, and tell us about the base cloth?
Okay, great questions. So traditional printing, as we alluded to before, is about screen printing. So literally when we traditionally print, we have parameters we need to work within for repeats, and based on the size of the repeat determines how many screens you're allowed to print. And each screen represents a color. So I don't want to refer to this, but if I refer to this, we did this traditionally. So you saw the original piece of art, we digitized it, we sent it off to the mill. Each color in the digitized art we sent was a file. So if we look at our little selvage here, we will see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 colors in this design. So we cut a screen and a layer for this sort of magenta or burgundy color. We cut a different screen for this darker green. We cut another screen and another layer for the lighter green, so on and so forth. So the mill will determine what to print first, and each color is a print, and then it goes down the line and another screen prints the next color, and then the next color, and then the next color. So when you get to the end of the run, you've got your piece of fabric with all its color on it. And then it goes through a system, and I don't know if any of you been to a mill in the Carolinas, and I'm sure somebody must have been to a fabric mill, maybe Springs, you would be familiar with how the color layers on top of each other. It gets to the end of the process, it gets heat set, it goes through a whole nother finishing process, and off it goes into a bin, and then eventually it gets moved to another part of the facility, and it gets rolled on a tube, and then it goes to another part of the facility, on and on and on. But that's how they do a traditional engraved fabric printing. Did that answer that part of the question? Okay. On digital, we can do one of several things. Depending on the colors, and I know I said beige is not an easy color to produce digitally. It's really true. I will tell you this probably casts it a little warmer and a little more red than we would have liked, but it's super beautiful. And we just send them a digitized file of the exact art. We don't have to separate layers because the process does not have a screen print for every color. So when we print this and we start making corrections on our strike-offs, we have to make global corrections. We know we can only push so far to the warm and so far to the cool without jeopardizing some of the other colors in the design. This is probably not the best representation, but we would have sent a file with this pattern. And so it runs salvage to salvage. And that's the repeat, salvage to salvage. And I can't remember how long the repeat was down the goods, but this does not repeat itself again. No. Nope, I had to double check myself. So again, this one, I don't recall because we worked on it so long ago. We may have sent individual layers to try to tweak certain colors because you can see we have warm colors in here and we have cooler colors. And if we made a global adjustment, we couldn't fix that blue to match the original artwork. So it's a little more complicated, but it's certainly not as complicated as printing traditionally. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and what about the
unlimited color?
It's unlimited color. We're restricted by the width of the goods for the repeat that way, but we can go on and on and on. So when we think about Denise Burkett, whose line we showed from Australia, some of her repeats are 56 inches long. But you don't know that. You don't necessarily have to buy a 56-inch piece because you may only want to use parts of it. So the repeat is endless, color is endless. We print all of our goods with the exception of CAFE on what's called 60 squares, 100% cotton, beautiful, beautiful fabric, every quilter's dream. And then we go through a special finishing process, which we don't talk about, but it does have an incredible hand on our goods. And we work with various mills in Korea, we worked with a mill in Japan, we work with mills in Pakistan, and we work with mills in India. And we pretty much have a formula built so that regardless of where we print, we get that same soft, beautiful hand once the goods are finished. So it's a calendar process, but there's a little more to it than that. But it is a very special finishing process.
Top secret.
Top secret.
Top secret, and we all love it.
Mm-hmm.
So could I just show this
Yes, you
quilt?
may. That's what I was looking for.
Right.
This quilt is one of my favorites.
So I wanted to show this one. We don't have the actual quilt to show you, but it has been made. So this one's called Hyde Park, and you can see that the person that, let me see, Cotton Street Commons actually is the person that created this. This is a virtual image of the quilt. And when Marcia created this quilt, what she did, so what Debbie's referring to are some of his other fabrics. Here in the background, that's some of like his low volume prints that you would typically see of Tim. And then all the other fabrics that are in this are the fabrics that Debbie just showed you here with the Abandoned One line. So this is a gorgeous quilt, very masculine. For those of you that don't know, you want to make a quilt for a man, well, here it is. This is a perfect quilt as a throw, for your couch or for the special man in your life, whether it be your husband, your son, your nephew, whoever it is, it's a perfect quilt.
Your boyfriend.
Your boyfriend, if it's your boyfriend or whoever. And then these quilts are very modern, or a little bit more modern in the look. Here, this is Tammy Silvers actually designed these for us. And again, I mean, these are some darker colors in here, and they're really, really beautiful, put very nicely together with this new collection, Abandoned One. And like Debbie said, this ships in October. This should be at your local quilt store in October. And the collection's gorgeous. I'm very excited as a quilter to see it because it has so much more color in it. Oh, I didn't show this one. And then here's one that's a little bit darker. It's called Tile Work. and you can see that we didn't use any of Tim's other prints in this one. This is strictly abandoned, but with the new provisions are in this. You can see the darker color in it, but it's really, really beautiful. So we're showing you multiple ways of which you can use these collections. And then I'd like to just quickly show them this quilt if we could.
And I do want to show them just how beautiful the provisions. I mean, look at the richness and the depth of color across. While the original colors are beautiful and play nicely, these just really set it on fire.
Right, absolutely. It's beautiful. It looks gorgeous. And so Deb, would you mind holding this side? I'd like to show everybody this quilt. So this quilt, maybe we could bring it up on the table a little bit for Nancy. So the background of this quilt, this is Scrap Petal Garden, and this is a pattern that you can get from, hold on, I'm looking at my note, Cabin in the Woods. So Cabin in the Woods, she designed this for us, and you can see in the background of this, that what I like about this quilt is that it shows Tim Holtz, all his low volume prints in the background, and there's a lot of them. It's not just one. The background's all patched up together, and we laid CAFE on top of it. So what's so great about this is just that, you know, it's just showing that you can take Tim and you can put some fabulous color on top of it. But what I love now that we have this abandoned is that the colors are so much stronger in the abandoned. We could take this exact same quilt and take Tim's new abandoned SKUs and put those into these flowers, and it would add so much color and variety and depth to this. So this quilt, you know, although, you know, what I think we made it a year or two ago, I mean, this absolutely, you could easily recreate this quilt using any of Tim's current fabrics, you know, or you could combine with CAFE, whether you kept it all Tim or whether you combine with CAFE. And you could also take all of his provisions right here. If you wanted to just use the background or just all the low volume in the background, you could just make all of the flowers in his provisions if you wanted to. You could make them variegated flowers, or you could pick whatever color was your favorite and make all of these flowers just a solid color. There's so many different ways that you could recreate this quilt. And the variety that Tim's collection offers, I think you can see, is really endless. So it's really beautiful. Oh, so we have to keep going. Are you running out of battery?
I don't know. Okay, well, I think my part is done. Any questions?
Thank you, Debbie. Any questions for Debbie?
Okay, so the questions we've had, a lot. You've answered a lot of them along the way.
Okay.
We got. Somebody was asking about the difference in cost of doing digital printing versus traditional printing.
Okay, so digital printing is still more expensive than traditional. Sorry. But we've seen the gap narrow. It's definitely getting closer. It's not ridiculous any longer, but it is more expensive.
Okay. I'm thinking I'm getting, and then we're hoping that you're going to talk to us about the Tula pink in the back too.
Oh, of course we are.
Well,
Okay.
so that's a great segue. And she is my dream child. She is the person that sends everything perfectly put together, tied with a bow, and we do very little work with Tula. She is meticulous. She is amazing. And this collection is by far just outstanding. We're so excited. And I'm going to give you a little secret. So the collection is 12 SKUs. And it's all based, obviously, on black and white animals. And when she and I were going back and forth about what animals and whatever, sometimes I have to take notes because I've got so many designers telling me so many things. In her last rendition to give me a collection before wrapping it up with a bow, I had taken notes and I thought she'd mentioned something about a lemur and it wasn't included in the, you know, PDF she sent to me. And I said, what happened to that lemur? She goes, yeah, I don't know. And I said, I want to see the lemur. And she sent it and I said, oh my God, you cannot not have that piece in the collection. It has to be in there. She goes, my mom said the same thing. I'm like, your mother and I know best. It needs to be in the collection. And it is an incredible piece. And I think what's so interesting is how the background is really all little black dots. And it makes the texture in the background. And then you've got the little lines to create the lemur. It is just spectacular. Really spectacular. But every piece in the collection is great, no matter how you look at it. Thank you. It's super.
Nancy, you want to talk about that?
So this is our, in case you don't know, we have a agreement with the original Morrison cow. We have exclusive access to William Morris's archives. We have access to his journals and his notes about color and design. So what we do with Morris & Co. or William Morris Fabrics is we are held to a standard above anybody else. You're going to get really authentic William Morris fabrics when you buy our William Morris fabrics.
Right. So we work with the art studio in the UK to create all of the fabrics that you can purchase at your local quilt shops.
So
And they are authentic to the formulas and colorways that he has created.
So this is a block of the month that will begin in January. It's called Morris Medley. The pattern designer is Marilyn Foreman. And we're promoting actually the blue version. We don't have the quilt. It's out on tour. Somebody has it. So we're promoting the blue version. But this runs from January through December of next year. And this is just such a stunning quilt. You can see that the Strawberry Thieves is in here, which is like the iconic William Morris, and the Willow Bows, iconic William Morris. The Chrysanthemum Toile, iconic William Morris. This is just about as authentic as you're going to get in terms of William Morris fabric. So again, Morris Medley block of the month, starting January next year. Ask your local retailer about it. You can make the large quilt, which is 101 inches, or the small, which is 65. I believe this is a small.
Yes.
Yeah, in a different color story. But we're really excited about it. This will become like a family treasure if you make this quilt. This is something that should be in your family forever. So William Morris Fabrics, Morris & Co. and the Morris Medley.
Holtz. We already talked about Tim Holtz, and this is his Yuletide collection. This is his Christmas collection, and this is called Strippy Forest, and this was designed by GE Designs. And you can see, you know, in here again, you see these beautiful colors and Tim's unique hand in all of his fabric design. He's got, you know, that low volume print in the background that we've used, but he's got it in, I believe that's Santa's Christmas list.
Yes.
Yep, it's Santa's
So-
Christmas list
right,
with
so
gold metallic stars printed on top.
Right. And it's really, really beautiful. And you can see how we've used his provisions in this as well as his Christmas fabrics to make all of the trees. And it's really just a very, very handsome line. I love the plaid here and this border. I mean, it's really sensational. All of the fabrics are beautiful. It was a very, very strong line for us. And you should definitely go out and look for this one as well.
It's in stores now.
Yes. And I also wanted to say before they pull up the next quilt that this Tula quilt is called Opening Night, and you can get that pattern. It will come up on our website once line work ships, and that will be shipping in October. So that pattern you'll be able to get there. And Tula actually tells a big story. If you listen to Tula talk,
Right.
she talks about, because this is a remake of Center Stage, which was a different collection that she had done a couple of years ago, and she remade it here in the line work collection. But you can look for both of these patterns on our website.
And I'm going to give a little plug for the National Quilt Museum because they have an auction going on right now, and Tula donated her original Center Stage quilt
Oh.
to the auction. So you can go to the National Quilt Museum website and click into the auction and have your chance to own the Tula original as well.
Wow, that's
Cool.
awesome.
Somebody asked too, does Tula design her own quilts or does somebody else design for her? I think I actually know the answer, but I'll.
It's both.
It's both.
Yeah. And Tula, she is, you know, nobody knows her line or her fabrics better than her, and she knows exactly how she wants to place them. You know what I mean? So when she's designing a line, she probably already has the idea in mind of which quilt she's going to design for it. So when she submits her fabric line, she also submits quilts that she has designed or developed virtually. And she participates in this as much as anybody else does. And we also have other, collaborators within the industry, and they also design for us and make beautiful. I mean, some people just love Tula and totally know what to do with it. And we team with them, and they also design quilts for us. So it's a combination of both. But Tula, the ones that you see the most are either designed by Tula or Stacy Day, because they're both phenomenal. So this quilt is, which one?
Sunday in the Country.
Sunday in the Country.
By Natalie Latte.
Yes, and this fabric delivered when?
In August to your local quilt shop.
And Natalie Latte is a French artist, and she does a lot of work in other categories of business, specifically a lot of work with anthropology and some European stores. So she's got this really nostalgic but sort of quirky look to her. It's super beautiful.
So sweet. And this quilt was designed by Honoria Horner.
Yeah.
This is part of Honoria's conservatory group, which is a group of artists that Anna curates. But it's just so sweet. I had to share it with you. Well, we had to share it with you because this is from a which one is the panel? This is a panel that you can get with the collection. It's just adorable, and it's in your shops now, and it's also been reordered, so we're gonna have a lot of it. And it's what I showed the back.
Oh, the back is adorable. Turn it around.
The fabric's so sweet. Again, Sunday in the Country by Natalie Latte.
Nope. Hold it steady, girls. Sorry, ladies. Are you getting dizzy? Because I am. Oh, it's super cute. Notice the squirrel eating a nut. The little cat licking its paw. Super sweet. Oh, let's not forget the hedgehog.
I'm sorry.
Wait a minute. I don't have the hedgehog.
Where's
Well,
the camera?
it's weird because the camera's not kept.
Oh, it's on the
All right.
end.
It's right there. There's the hedgehog. He looks like a frog from here. It's a hedgehog.
Ooh, I don't
Oops,
want
sorry.
you to trip.
Sorry about that, though. So
Good thing this is not my full-time job, cameraman.
So this is this is Anna Maria Horner's Triple Take. It delivers in September to your local quilt shop, so this month. It matches back perfectly to Sunday in the Country, just so that you know they are meant to work together. And these are, you can talk better about the designs there. I mean, there's a panel. This is from the panel from Triple Take, this one and this one. So there is a panel. So if you wanted to use the panel for the center of your quilt, you can.
And so the reason for Triple Take is some of these designs have been in other collections before, and she pulled them together, and we made them all 3-color prints, thus Triple Take.
Yeah, and again,
So we talked about screens. We printed this traditionally, and each design has no more than 3 colors in it.
again, matching back perfectly to Natalie Latte's Sunday in the Country. They are meant to work together.
Right.
And I just want to show
back.
you the back because there's something special on the back of this. I know it looks like a solid, but it's more than a solid.
Yes.
These are sueded cottons from Jane Sassaman. She has 16 colors.
Yep.
They all have like a brushed feel to it, a really beautiful texture. They're hand dyed in India, which means they're out a yard of the fabric. The colors will gradate and look totally different depending on where you cut it or how you cut it. And it's meant to look like that because of the hand dyed process.
See the different modeling and sort of almost the creasing you see here? It's because it's all hand dyed. A lot of it is dried in the sun, and then it goes through a finishing process, multiple finishing processes to avoid any kind of cracking or bleeding.
Right.
So it's really beautiful. It's soft and luxurious. It's
more
really
than
beautiful.
a solid. It's
Right.
it's a color explosion.
It is. They're beautiful.
And then show.
I'd like to show them this quilt. So we don't have the quilt. The quilt's out on tour. This is called Chromatic Spiderweb, and Jane Sassaman actually developed this one. So she submitted her line, and this was one of the quilts that she developed, you know, to use the fabrics. And as you can see, it's definitely, you know, the traditional spiderweb pattern in there, but it's done in a very updated FreeSpirit kind of way. And we love this quilt, and I wish we could show it to you, but really is beautiful. All the fabrics are really gorgeous. And you should consider these for future projects or your stash.
Yeah, so next we're going to talk about Keith a little bit because Keith is the master of color. In his collective, which is Keith, Brandon Medley, and Philip Jacobs, they work together. Keith colors all the art, so it's cohesive. And the beauty about Keith is that you can have Keith from 20 years ago. It'll work great with what he's producing today because of the way he uses color. So part of his work is with shock cottons and shock cotton stripes. These are Keith's basics. Keith would never ever use a regular solid. These are woven fabrics. There's one color thread in the warp of the fabric and another color thread in the weft of the fabric.
On the solid ones.
Yeah, on the solid ones to give it like iridescent, That's probably the best one.
Yeah, it's got
An iridescent, color, and it actually changes depending on how you cut it or where you put it in your quilt or what you put it next to. But these are considered his basics. These shock cottons, I think there's 30 colors here. And then
I know,
I just noticed this is the old card.
this is the old card.
But anyway, he does have shock cottons. And Debbie can show you over here.
And then he has the stripe. He's got a 1/2-inch stripe and a 3/4 inch
Yeah.
stripe.
And so these are the same thing. These are yarn dyed wovens. Again, different colors in the warps and wefts, which gives them an iridescent look. Yeah, this is a great example of this aqua one.
And Kate designed this quilt. Kate and Brandon designed their own quilts. And so Kate and Brandon worked on this one, and they actually designed it. They sent us the information on it, and we created the full-scale version of it. So as you can see, again, a great, great quilt for your bed. Nice quilt for a man if you're looking for something like that, or a woman. I mean, this isn't just a man, but if you have this type of styling in your home and you like this, it's perfect for that.
Yep. Even better though, if you're looking for a solid that's not really solid and that has movement in your quilt, the shock cottons are for you.
And that's a whole nother process that we'll have to get into on the next visit with FreeSpirit Fabrics.
So I do want to call attention to what just delivered to your local quilt shop for Cave. This is his August 2020, oh my gosh, I don't know what year it is, collection. These are Philip Jacobs fabrics. These are Cave's, and these are Brandon's. So you see, Cave gives you this great florals. This is lotus leaf, of course, very recognizable guinea flower. You can see the simplicity of what Cave does. His spots, of course, people love his spots. Lots of colors. He took some of his classics. This is Millefiore, probably the most recognized print of Cave's, and he recolored it in different colors. You can't grab it. Different colors, which will become part of his classic collection next year. But we'll come back next year and talk about his classics. How's that?
That'd be great.
The diamond stripe. Maybe we could come and meet you in person. Anyway, you can see these are all Cave's prints. I don't want to, Tiddlywinks, best print in the world, Tiddlywinks. And then Phillips, is this not stunning? Agate. You could cut this thing up, and Cave will tell you, just cut the fabric. Don't worry about it. Cut it up. You could cut this in a million different pieces, and you're going to see beauty and bursts of color and design in every part of it. I love this fabric. I just think it's fabulous. Agate. So you're going to have to help me with the names.
Agate.
Agate. God, I keep calling it agate. This is a bearded iris, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Beautiful, right?
Yep.
Absolutely beautiful. A lily. Might have a different name. I love this one. This looks very tropical. I think a tropical shirt's in your future with that one. Look at these watermelons. Is that amazing? Not even just the print, but just the richness and depth of color. I mean, you could, again, chop it up in a million pieces. You're going to have a surprise every time. I love this print. Thanks, Sarah. More.
Then we have Wisteria.
And Wisteria. Not
That's
to be confused
gorgeous.
with Wisteria Lane. I love on the black background. The colors are just so, this little more subtle.
This is my favorite.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
The gray. I don't remember this. Is this Delilah?
Yes.
Dahlia.
Dahlia.
Close.
Delilah.
Dancing dahlias.
Dancing
Dahlias.
dahlias. I need horticultural. So you see, Cave brings simplicity. Philip brings the beauty of his florals in his paintings. And then we have Brandon, which brings the whimsical fun to the Cave Collective. And we won't go through all of it because we're going to show you a quilt because I think it's getting late. There's flower dots, and this is Stream. What is this one?
That's Stream.
That's Stream. What was that one?
This is Animal.
Animal prints. Thank
Love
you.
that.
God, thank God you guys are here.
Oh, and here's the
And the octopus.
And the octopus, yeah.
Yeah, so we want them to pay attention to the octopus for the next
Yes, and
quilt.
don't look at it like an octopus. You gotta look at it like lace.
Right.
Because when you cut it,
It's the
gonna be
movement. It's the
lacy effect.
movement and lace and
Yeah, lacy effects.
So let's
So-
show them the fabric. Which is that dark one?
The dark one?
Right here. Yeah, so I want to show you this piece of fabric right here. So this is the octopus, like Nancy just said. So if you're up close, you can see it's an octopus, but when it gets cut up, we're going to show you how it looks really beautiful. So we could grab this. So this quilt was designed by Kate and Brandon, and this is using this collection. So this is the collection that just shipped to stores. This is everything Nancy just showed you in the fabric. And so this is August 2020. This just shipped to their local quilt shops. So all those fabrics that Nancy just showed you are in this quilt. So you can see here, here's the octopus. It's fussy cut here, but it's not fussy cut here. I mean, and honestly, I don't even know that it was truly fussy cut, but regardless, you could fussy cut it if you wanted to, or you could just create it here. And you can see how like the border, it really looks very lacy. It doesn't really, I mean, we all know it's an octopus, but when you look at it and you step back from it, it really doesn't necessarily read that way. And there's all these other beautiful prints in here that are, you know, just as stunning. These coming across here, and then the
agate.
The agate, right? I was about to say it incorrectly. And, you know, all of these prints, the watermelons are in here. I mean, Kate and Brandon, you know, they pull the color in and they do a fantastic job. They put this little simple zigzag around to pull everything together. The background, oh, and as Kate and Brandon say, they love for the party to continue on the back.
Right.
So
And this is Brandon's onion rings, 108-inch
Right.
quilt back. And I will say that Kate, Brandon, and Tula have fabulous new quilt backs coming out, and they're all on a 300 sateen. They are glorious.
They have
Beautiful
a
sheen,
wonderful hand.
Beautiful hand,
Yeah.
really fine yarns to create the 300 thread count. It is just gorgeous.
It's luxury on your body.
Yeah. What I love about these 108-inch sateens, I mean, as Debbie and Nancy just said, the feel is fantastic, but when you actually put it on the quilt gets a lot more weight to the quilt. So when you're actually under the quilt, you can feel the heaviness. You know, if you like a blanket like that that's heavy, I would definitely, oh, I bless my mask here. I would definitely look into these sateens. They're really beautiful and that very nice hand.
So last but
Wait,
certainly,
no, not least. We have
Oh,
one more. One more after
last
this one.
and
We're
not
almost
least.
there.
Yeah, so this is Kate's Festive Jewell quilt kit that just delivered to shops. This was designed by Lori Q. Allison from All About Color. Sorry. It's all about, she has an online shop called All About Color, and she does amazing stuff with Kate fabric. I would ask you to go visit her, allaboutcolor.com, so you can see the beautiful things she makes with Kate's fabric. But this is more of a holiday feel. It's perfect for as a gift for someone special, or just to make and have in your house during the holidays, thrown over a sofa or hanging, you know, by your Christmas tree. Or really, the colors speak to any time of year. If your decor has these rich, beautiful colors. So again, this is the Festive Jewell quilt kit, which just delivered to your local quilt shop. So you better run while
Right.
she still has it, because this will go fast.
Yep.
I love it. I think it's beautiful. And it has the shot cottons around the border and on the binding as a shot. And it comes with the border and the binding. It does not come with the backing fabric. That you have to provide yourself.
And the other thing that you could consider for this kit as well is because of the size of it, if you didn't use it as a throw, you could certainly put it over a table.
Yeah.
I wouldn't serve food on it, but it would be very beautiful on a Christmas table.
Yeah,
Decorative.
absolutely.
And then this is the last quilt that we
This
have
is
to
the
show
piece
for
de
tonight.
resistance. Actually, I'm really sorry that I'm not going to get a great angle. Oh, maybe, yes, Nancy, if you could go that way.
What, come in?
Yeah,
Come in, Nancy?
come on in front of the
No,
chair,
let's
Nancy.
swing towards, oh,
You swing. Okay, so I really am sorry. We have a very small space here to,
can you get most of it?
I've got most of it. What do you ladies
So
think?
what do
Can you
want
see
to
it
say?
pretty well?
This is Anna Maria Horner's Hindsight. This is in celebration of her 15th anniversary as a fabric designer.
As a FreeSpirit
As a
fabric designer
FreeSpirit
too.
Fabric designer. And she took some of her favorite and best of the best designs and morphed them together to create these new designs, which are just absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
This is called the Wheelhouse quilt. It's been out in the market since May, and it's a club quilt that's just wrapping up in October. But I would go to your local quilt shop if you love this quilt. They have fabric. This fabric's gonna be around for a little bit. So I would run in and see if they have it, and you could probably replicate this quilt if your shop is part of the Wheelhouse Club shops.
Right.
Running out of words.
Exactly.
And if not, and they have a Hindsight, I'm sure you can find something beautiful to make with it.
Right.
It's just gorgeous.
And I'd like to point out so this quilt really has Anna Maria's hand in it. Anna Maria, not only did she design the fabric, but when I say her hand, she designed this quilt.
Right.
And this is very, it's very familiar look from Anna Maria, but it's absolutely stunning. And there is a ton of fussy cutting in this quilt. So this quilt is, if you can't see, it's very, very intricate, and this will be very time consuming, but well worth the effort, because as you can see, the colors are amazing.
And the hand applique.
Right. So you've got the hand applique, you could do machine applique. You could create this however you wanted to create it, but it is a labor intensive quilt. And that's why we've spanned it out over 5 months, because we want everyone to be excited, to participate in this and not get burnt out on a quilt. And we have a Facebook group.
We have a Facebook group. If you go on our website, FreeSpiritFabrics.com, there's a tab called Be Inspired, and you'll see in the Be Inspired, the Wheelhouse Club. And if you click on that club, there's videos of every month that we've been making this quilt, of Anna offering tips and techniques of how to make each part of this quilt. And she makes it look so easy. I think even I could do it.
You could.
Yeah, I always walk away going, God, I could do that. Why am I not doing that?
Yeah,
but yeah,
this is a gorgeous quilt.
Stunning.
Well worth the time and effort. And, we wanted to save the best for last. So we've shown you a lot of beautiful quilts tonight. And Debbie has shown you the process for the fabrics. And Nancy, I think there's a couple other things we wanted to talk about. We wanted to talk about
Say yes.
Say yes to the Cave Collective.
Right. And we have a little challenge for you.
But wait a minute, we also wanted to talk about Tula Pink's homemade challenge.
And we want to see if anybody has any other questions. Debbie, do you know if there are any other
I
questions?
think I've got all of our questions have been answered.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll let you wrap up.
Okay.
All right, so just a couple things to whet your appetite. Tula came out in March with a collection called Homemade, and the collection really is about everything, every process, everything you need and use in sewing. It's her take on the process of sewing. So there's a sewing machine. Yes, it is a Bernina. There's tools of the trade. There's something called pins and needles. There's one that's called measure twice. There's one that's called seed stitch. Homemade is really your story. It's everything that makes you want to sew and every reason why you sew. And so when she introduced this last October, we started something called the Homemade Challenge. And I don't know if any of you are going to be part of the Homemade Challenge, but I know we have quilts already. Homemade Challenge is going to be a juried exhibit that will be at the Houston Quilt Market next fall. It was supposed to be there this fall, but Quilt Market is canceled due to COVID. But it's your take on Tula Pink's Homemade and what it means to you to sew. So I would just encourage you, go to our website under the Be Inspired tab. It's FreeSpiritFabrics.com, Be Inspired. Click on Homemade Challenge and take a look at it. We've partnered with a lot of our friends in the industry. There's a lot of great prizes to be had. If you're making a quilt for the challenge, I wish you best luck. But the deadline for submitting your quilt is at the end of this month. So that's one thing. Another thing I wanted to talk about is Kaif's Patchwork and Quilting books. Kaif, this is like number 23 that he's done. He brings a book out every year, and it's not even about the book, but it's about what's in the book. And it's about inspiring you to make beautiful quilts. And Keith loves this because it gives him the ability to play with color and design and impart his color and design thoughts. And I don't want to say theory, he hates the word theory. His color and design sensibilities onto you through what he presents in this book. And he encourages you to make everything in this book. So to help you be encouraged, we have another challenge, again, under the Be Inspired tab at FreeSpiritFabrics.com. And this, you could really just jump on it tomorrow. It's called Say Yes to Cape Collective. It's a little impromptu challenge. We're asking that you take one of the quilts from this book and recreate it in your own color story, your own design story, using Cape Bassett Collective fabric. Any Cape Bassett Collective fabric, whether it's in your stash or you buy it in the store now. And the deadline for submitting your quilt and all the information about submitting the quilt is on our website. You simply have to post it on your personal Facebook page or Instagram and hashtag it, Say Yes to Cape Collective. And Kate's going to go through every single hashtag and pick his favorites, and you could win Cape fabric that nobody has ever seen and nobody has. So that's the whole fun about it. Again, Say Yes, Cape Bassett Collective, under the Be Inspired tab on our website.